Beyond the membrane, Malakor did not wait. He had never learned how. He had no name for what he felt when the sacred heart pulsed. It was not longing. Longing implied something remembered, and he had consumed his memories long ago along with everything else. It was closer to the moment before collapse, the instant a star's core loses the fight against its own gravity and begins to fall inward. Inevitable. Accelerating. Total. The membrane thinned with each pulse. He pressed himself against it, feeling the texture of the physical universe like a blind thing reading stone. Close. The heart was close. And it was beginning to leak. He began feeding his lesser servants into the barrier. They burned. He watched the burning with something that was not satisfaction. Satisfaction implied an end, and Malakor had no ends, only continuation. He watched the burning because it measured the distance. They burned slower each time. He was nearly through. Inside the opulent silk command tent pitched on the high sand dunes, Prince Saffron sat staring at a brass inkwell. The grand illusion had shattered. Looking through his ledger books, he finally saw the truth. Haman, Jash'an and Sila Khayan had not built an imperial legacy for Aurosia. They had drained the treasury, lied about the progress, and used his royal name to cover their private greed. Saffron felt no anger now, only a hollow clarity. He pulled a sheet of dark parchment toward him and picked up his quill. He wrote a precise letter addressed to the old palace librarian. The letter was a specific order, one that he knew only the librarian could carry out. It was also an apology for and confession of his failure as a ruler. The order was his last act to make things right for his people. Dead men could not enjoy gold. He called for Khayan. Saffron handed him 3 pouches of gold coins along with the sealed letter. "Take this to the capital," Saffron instructed, his voice eerily calm. "Take 1 pouch of coin for yourself. Give the letter and the other 2 pouches to the librarian. He will deliver the coin to the Guild of Shadow Blades behind the old harbor. They will execute Haman, Jash'an and Sila Khayan before the next moon for their greedy betrayal." Khayan bowed low. His hands closed around the pouches. The weight of the gold matched the weight of this task. He hid the parchment inside his tunic and slipped out into the dusk. Khayan kept his head down, holding his coat tight against his chest. He slipped past the garrison guards, beginning his long walk back to the capital to find the palace librarian. His hand found the letter in his tunic. Saffron sat alone in the tent for a moment, listening to the pipeline hum beneath the earth. He stepped out of his tent and looked down at the desert. Across the dune sea stretched a massive, glowing city of canvas tents. Thousands of imperial infantrymen, heavy cavalry, and iron siege engines stood assembled in tight formation. The pipeline pumps roared beneath the earth, ready to feed the army as it prepared to march on the Iron Cleft. At midnight, the advisor's grand project reached maximum kinetic pressure. Deep beneath the sand, heavy iron valves opened, surging millions of gallons of coastal water through the 80-mile pipeline grid. The ground shuddered under the sheer weight of the rushing current. At dawn, Saffron's army moved down from the dunes, an imposing wall of dark steel and crimson sashes marching straight into the throat of the gorge. They expected a quick, bloody clearing of a disorganized homeless camp. Instead, as they reached the end of the salt pan, they looked up at a vertical wall of solid, unmortared shale, 20 feet high and anchored deep into the sandstone bedrock. The defense wall stood 500 yards up the canyon, blocking the narrow pass. The corporal with the scar looked up and recognized Master on the wall. Realized that Master had been a scout for the Outcasts all along. That their loose tongues in front of a stranger had resulted in this wall. Just his luck that his battalion was ordered to scale it first. The corporal's guilt turned into frustration as he listened to his comrades swearing and complaining around him. It was tricky to carry a 20-foot siege ladder over and around the boulders in the footpath to the wall. Looking down at the approaching soldiers, Glib swallowed. He knew the wall was safe, but seeing armed men marching towards them was scary. He turned to look down at the gorge to see if the royal army was coming. The Outcasts did not meet the invading army with a traditional line of soldiers. Master and Captain Joshua had turned the physical layout of the canyon into an asymmetric trap. As the first wave of armored imperial infantry rushed the narrow stone approach paths, Moshe and Gideon tipped large ceramic vats from the upper ledges, pouring catfish oil down the rocks. The heavy boots of the soldiers lost all traction, whole ranks slipped, crashed into one another, and tumbled violently down the gravel path. Moshe chuckled as he carried 2 more vats to the edge of the wall. This was fun. From the high cliff niches, Rose, Mary, and the older outcasts dropped tightly woven reed baskets into the middle of the crowded ranks below. As the baskets shattered on the stone floor, dozens of aggressive, venomous desert reed vipers poured out into the panicked lines. Mary's hands were shaking as she lifted the first basket to the ledge. She had been afraid for so long that she had forgotten what the opposite felt like. The basket left her hands. She heard it shatter on the stone path below, heard the chaos erupt. She was already reaching for the second one. Her hands had stopped shaking. She didn't notice until the third basket, when she realized she was moving fast, faster than she ever had, and she was not afraid of any of it. She swung the next basket with gusto. Behind the wall, the non-combatants, children, and elderly sat safely inside the subterranean sandstone chambers, protected by heavy rock doors that Master had engineered months before. The kinetic friction of the roaring pipeline beneath the earth finally pushed the fault line in the membrane past its structural limit. The subterranean vibration resonated upward, striking the sky directly above the mountain peaks like an iron hammer. With a sound like tearing metal, the sky above the Iron Cleft ripped open. A jagged, violet tear cut through the clouds. Malakor's massive, shadowy silhouette pressed against the cosmic breach. He could only fit one claw through the tear. It was enough. He unleashed wild arcs of cosmic lightning into the physical world. Massive bolts of white energy struck indiscriminately across the canyon. One blast shattered the crest of the Outcasts' shale defense wall. Another struck the open sand, detonating a section of the iron pipeline. A geyser of boiling water and twisted metal ejected high into the air. Panic seized Saffron's army. The battle descended into unearthly chaos. On the wall, the fun evaporated when pieces of rock ricocheted everywhere. Moshe dragged a slab of fallen rock off Gideon. His heart beat rapidly in his chest. On the cliff, Rose, Mary and the others ran to take cover in the cavern. High on the northern ridge, Glib adjusted a small glass mirror, catching the flash of a distant lantern signal from the southern pass. He looked down toward the defense wall where Master stood. 10 minutes, Glib shouted over the roar of the storm, holding up 10 fingers. Captain Joshua and the King's Royal Guard are 10 minutes from the canyon mouth. Master looked at the crumbling shale wall. A fresh strike of atmospheric lightning tore through the upper stone shelf. His mind processed the variables instantly. The defense wall would hold for 5 minutes at most under the combined weight of Saffron's army and Malakor's overhead rage. The math did not work. The outcasts would be slaughtered before Joshua's garrison could enter the pass. Master looked at his steel staff, then up at the dark shadow clawing through the sky. Malakor was not attacking Dune City, he was attacking him. To save the outcasts, Master had to remove the target from the valley. Master turned away from the defense line and sprinted toward the glowing, unstable rift at the base of the northern cliff face, the direct portal connecting the canyon to the unformed void. He moved fast, not looking back. He knew if he looked back, he would not go. He did not see Becca. She had followed him from the wall through the chaos, staying low, staying quiet, hiding from the sound of thunder outside. In her child's mind, Master was the one who protected them. She watched him cross the threshold into the glowing rift. She watched the light close behind him. She stood in the empty corridor for a long time, her hand pressed flat against the cold stone where he had been. Master stepped out of physical space and into the vast, silent vacuum between worlds. The silence of the void hit him like a physical force after the noise of the canyon. Here, the battle did not exist. The pipeline did not exist. Rose's kitchen and Tobias's trees and Glib's terrible jokes did not exist. Together, Keo said. Not a question. Together, Master said. All 4 of them rose in him at once. Not voices now but presences, filling every available space, the biological handshake completing something it had been building toward since a dark cave and 4 glowing pods. He raised the staff. The sacred heart answered. The beam that left the crystal cap was not lightning. It was the compressed frequency of an entire civilization's infrastructure, aimed at the thing that had destroyed it. Malakor felt it before it struck. He turned. The shriek that followed had no sound because there was no air to carry it, but Master felt it in the bone of his jaw and the roots of his teeth and the space behind his eyes. Master held Malakor's attention for exactly as long as he needed to. Then he turned and ran. Not away, but deeper into the unformed dark, drawing the hunter after him and away from the canyon and the wall and the fire and the people who had given him something worth protecting. Behind him, the tear in the sky above the Iron Cleft began to close. Minutes later, Captain Joshua led the king's heavy royal guard into the throat of the Iron Cleft. They found Saffron's army in total disarray, shattered by viper bites, slick oil, and the terrifying sky storm. The royal garrison swept through the pass, disarming the panicked survivors and securing the valley. Near the ruptured pipeline, soldiers found Prince Saffron. He lay still atop one of his metal sentinel pillars, his fine crimson robe scorched, struck down by the wild atmospheric lightning he had brought into the desert. The cheering started at the wall. As the garrison swept through the pass and the imperial vanguard broke, someone began to shout and then everyone was shouting, and Glib was laughing the way he only laughed when he forgot to protect himself from joy. Rose looked around the canyon. She was counting. "Where is he?" she asked. Nobody answered. Then everyone answered at once, and nobody knew. It was Becca who walked through the noise and stood in front of Joshua. She looked up at him with the expression of someone who has understood something the adults have not caught up with yet. "He walked into the mountain," she said. "He went to make the thing in the sky follow him instead of us." Joshua did not ask which mountain or what thing. He had watched Master look at the purple clouds for 2 seasons. He understood. "Will he come back?" Glib asked, his voice vulnerable. Joshua looked at the peaks, where the violet storm was already beginning to thin. He thought about a man who had sat down before he built anything, and asked their names before he asked what they could do. "He built this canyon into a city," Joshua said finally. "He'll find a way back." He was not certain, but it was the truest thing he could offer them, and it was enough. Far beyond the physical plane, Master came to a halt in an unformed, silent pocket dimension. Behind him, the physical tear closed shut. Malakor raged at the border of the realm, unable to breach the dense, natural immune forces safeguarding this pristine space. Free from the physical constraints of Master's mind matrix, the ancient souls inside him stepped forward into the open void. Syrax, Orma, Keo, and Vagar manifested in their true, breathtaking forms. Majestic, towering cosmic dragons whose scales shimmered like compressed starlight and molten iron. They hovered beside Master in the quiet vacuum, their eyes burning with ancient wisdom and deep loyalty. Master had known them for months as pressure and warmth and wit and the occasional geometric headache. He had never seen them. He stood very still. Syrax's ancient eyes found his first, and in them he saw the same dry, aristocratic amusement he had heard the first time she spoke to him in a dark cave. He laughed, a short, involuntary sound that disappeared into the silence of the void. "You could have told me," he said. "You were not ready," she said. "You are now." Anchored in their true realm, the dragon souls lowered their massive heads toward Master. They were no longer merely voices inside his thoughts, they were his guardians and mentors. Together in the unformed universe, they began his formal training in the ancient arts of cosmic warfare, preparing him for the war that lay ahead.